Okay, so 10.9a is going to deal with circles on a plane. So a few things we need to talk about first is, we already know what a circle looks like. A circle is a set of all points on a plane that are a fixed distance, called the radius, from a fixed point, called the center. So the circle is all the points that are on the graph that are x, y, that are r units away from the center, which is called h, k. What? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at our picture here, okay, our little circle. Actually, let's talk about the equation real quick. The equation of a circle is x minus h squared, okay, where this minus part's going to come in handy later. We're going to have to understand it's a minus. Then we have y minus k squared. So I'm going to do that in a different color. Sorry about that. hk. And then equal to our radius squared. Okay, where, here are your letters. Your R, we all know, is radius. K is the y coordinates, and h is going to be the x coordinates. So we take a look at the little circle and coordinate grid picture over here. What this this wording up here is saying is that you're going to have a center right here. Your center is at hk. All right. Then your radius, we know, is going to go out to all the different points on the circle. And this is going to end up being, this point out here is going to wind up being x, y, somewhere on the coordinate grid. All right? So here's our radius. And then a lot of times we can actually go down here and we can create a 90-degree angle, right angle. But what this is saying is that your circle is all these points, all these XY points all over the place that are R units from your center point. So this point over here is going to be your radius distance from the center. A point over here will be your radius distance from. So all these XY coordinate points on the grid are going to be the exact same distance, your radius, away from the center of that circle. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like. We are going to draw these circles, the graphs of these circles. We need to keep in mind this formula up here. With the x squared plus y squared equals 16. When we're looking at this formula, the standard form equation of a circle, we don't have a plus or a minus anything. So all this really is x squared plus 0. Well, I guess put it as minus 0, follow the formula perfectly. Minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared, because there's nothing there, all equal to 16. So whatever we're adding or subtracting is going to end up being our center. So our center is, as we see up here, is going to be that h and that k. So our center is at 0, 0, our origin. If you look up here, this is the radius squared. So if we want the radius, we have to realize the radius squared is 16. That's what this is. So we have to actually take the square root so we can get our radius of 4. All right? So we start off with the center. The center is at 0, 0, our origin. And then in all 4 directions, left, right, up, and down, we count 4, because that's where all the points on the circle, that's how far it is from that center. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put a little dot there. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of hard to see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This helps us get a little bit more of a balance of how to draw the circle. And then we can just try our hardest to connect all of these the best we can and the most pretty looking circle possible. Okay, you won't be graded on, oh, your circle's not perfect. Okay. So now we take a look at problem B. Remembering our formula of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So now we do have numbers. What I need you guys to focus on is the fact that we are subtracting h and k. What that negative does is it changes the sign of what we're doing. So when we want to look at our center, our h, we have to take the opposite of, that's what that minus h is. It's changing this from a plus 2 to a minus 2. So our center winds up being a negative 2. It's going to be the opposite. And then we take a look at what our h is. our k is a minus 5, so it ends up being a positive 5. So there's our center location. Okay? So we can go ahead and we can go find it if you want first. Okay, negative 2 on the x, positive 5 on the y. There's our center. When we find our radius, we need to remember that our radius is the square root of that. This is r squared. So we have to take the square root of 9, and it'll give us 3. So with that circle, we can go 3 in each direction. Up, to the right, down, and to the left. And we just connect those again the best we can to make as beautiful as a circle as possible. All right? So the big important thing is when you have these, remember, you have to switch the signs, because that's what the equation calls for. It says x minus the h. So you have to make sure that we're changing the sign on both of these. Okay? And then don't forget to square root that radius, or that the r on the other side. Now we're going to look at a problem here that we have some distribution occurring over here. But we're not going to distribute because we can't have that coefficient. But if you notice, your x over here attached to your y and the 124 over here can all be divided by 4. And if we, as long as we're doing the same thing to both sides, if we divide everything by 4, they're going to cancel out. Okay? So then we're going to wind up with just x squared plus, now we just have the y plus 2 squared, but we have to divide the other side by 4 as well, and that's going to get us 31. Okay? So when finding our center, we need to remember that nothing is attached. We're not adding or subtracting anything from that x. So your h is just going to be 0. Your k, you need to remember we have the plus 2. It's got to be the opposite, so we're going to have a negative 2. Put center. So there's our center, 0 on the x, negative 2 on the y. To find our radius, the distance, we need to remember that our radius is going to be the square root of whatever we have over here on the right, 31. This will come out to an irrational number. We'll say it's about 5.6. So when we go to find the left, right, up, and down, it's close enough to 5.5. So we can go 5.5. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. Same thing in all 4 directions. Hopefully not losing track. And then just connect it. The bigger the circle, the harder it is to make that circle. And I skipped it a little bit, but again, we got it. So now we're going to go the other direction. Instead of taking the equation and figuring out the center and the radius, we are going to be given the center and the radius, and we're going to write the equation. Okay, so the first thing we want to remember is that our equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared, all equal to the radius squared. So we set this up. We'll start off with our h and our k, okay, the 4 and the 2. We need to remember we have to change that sign. So we have x minus this number right here. So minus 4 squared plus y minus the 2 squared, all equal to your radius squared. So you have to square your radius to 36, and then there's your equation. Okay, just plugging everything in. Your next one, you'll see why we're changing the sign here. We have x minus a negative 2. Well, minus a negative turns into a positive. So x plus 2 squared plus y minus the 3 squared is equal to, well, we need to take this radical and square it. Remember when we square our radicals, distribute that square of the 2. 2 squared is going to give us 4. And then it cancels out the radical with the 3. So we just have a whole number 3. So this will come out to 12. And there is our equation. Now we're going to take a look at the equation. It's almost in the correct form, but we have one problem. We have a minus 9 outside of everything over here. Not a problem in fact, guys. All we need to do here is get it to the other side. So we have our radius squared on the other side. How do you get it to the other side? Well, it's a minus 9. So add 9, those cancel. Add 9, and then you have x minus 7 squared plus y plus 5 squared. This is no longer there, equals 9. So we can find our center. Our center would be located at, we need to change the sign, just that 7, positive 7, and a negative 5. So we want to go get that on the graph. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Negative 5, down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we remember that our radius is going to be the square root of this number over here, that 9. So it will be 3. So 3 in each direction. Barely had room there. I think I miscounted. And then connect those, just the best we can. Looks great. So now we're going to find the circumference and the area. Okay? It doesn't specify whether we want it exactly or whether we want it rounded, so we're going to do exactly. Remember that this means in terms of pi. Let me write that a little bit prettier for you. So we're not plugging pi into the calculator for this. Okay? So we know that our radius is going to be 3, which means our diameter will be double that, 6. So to find the circumference, we can just do your pi times diameter. So your circumference will simply just be 6 pi. Then when we go find the area, we remember that our area is pi r squared. So this will become your area is going to be your radius squared. 3 squared is 9, so you'll get 9 squared. Go up here, 3 squared times pi. So we just end up with 9 pi. And that's it for equations and circles on your coordinate grid.